Welcome back to Achampnator Reads. This evening, night, morning, wherever you are, or noon or afternoon, I read The Last Elf, this time chapter 5. Listen up. They were woken by the halberdiers. The halberdiers were on patrol. Not just the city of Delagar, but its surrounding area was forbidden to anyone who was not a resident, a relative of a resident, a guest of a resident, or in some way welcome to the residence, and they did not fall under any of those categories. The patrol questioned them about the existence and quantity of such possessions that they might have about them, and in general their means of support, and the reply the patrol received that they didn't have a damned thing except the clothes on their backs and 3-penny coins made the halberdiers even less cordial than they were already. The patrol made detailed inquiries into the state of their health. Did they have ticks, lice, fleas? Had they had contact with people suffering from cholera, leprosy, pestilence, scrofula, plague, vomiting attacks, dysentery, fevers, spots of any kind, ulcers, rheumy eyes, huh? intestinal worms? Because in that case they would be killed on the spot to avoid any form of contagion. And was the child in good health as well? Why was the mother holding him tightly in her arms in that shawl if he was well? Because he was tired, small and tearful? Small, tired and tearful children were not forbidden. Then they moved on to weaponry. Did they have any sharp weapons, anything that threw or fired projectiles, anything incendiary, bruising, penetrating, cutting, burning, any weapons that could be used for hunting, for hand-to-hand combat, for battle on horseback, on muleback, on all fours, for duels, for gang warfare, trench warfare, siege, counter-siege, target shooting, or hobbies? Yes? A bow, a dagger, a hatchet, a little bill hook, knife for cutting bread, all confiscated, and the 2 iron balls for carrying fire incendiary weapon. They had been the ones who had cut 2 whole branches, property of the county of Delagar, and uprooted 4 fern plants to have a shelter. That fell under the definition of crimes against the state, for which there were appropriate proceedings. Would they mind keeping the dog under control while it was put in a cage? All kinds of animals, whether domestic or wild, were prohibited, and their animal fell under both categories. They entered Delagar under the escort of the halberdiers. It was the strangest and most incredible place that a little elf had ever seen. There were humans everywhere. Big, small, male, female, armed, unarmed, with clothes of every imaginable color. There were voices, everybody seemed to be selling everything. Loaves of bread, corn cobs, big apples, cooking pots, firewood, wood for making chairs. There were funny birds everywhere, walking among the people. They were strange birds, big and fat, with wings too small to fly, and with a strange cry in which they constantly repeated the sound "coco." The halberdiers escorted them to the middle of the square, where there was a kind of baldachin, covered by a series of red and gold fabrics, which looked strangely like a gigantic cradle, and in it was a man all wrapped up in a long embroidered white garment that even covered his head, giving him the appearance of an enormous newborn baby. The enormous baby announced that he went by the curious name, oh my goodness, Judge Administrator of Delagar and surrounding district, which wasn't exactly a pretty name like Josh Krunsquarkel Jolnastring, but a nice name nonetheless. The Judge Administrator of Delagar and surrounding district asked their names, ages, jobs, or skills, and more important, what they had come to do in Delagar, without being residents, relations of residents, guests of residents, or at least welcomed by the same. The hunter replied that he didn't care at all about Delagar and its residents, relations of residents, guests of residents, and sympathizers, or whatever they were, and that all they wanted was to leave Delagar and its neighboring district as soon as possible and get back on the road. The judge administrator of Delagar and surrounding district observed that if they did not love Delagar and its neighboring district and its residents, including relatives, guests, and sympathizers, they need only have stayed at home, wherever such a place might have been located, so as to spare the halberdiers the trouble of having to discover, interrogate, and arrest them and him, the judge administrator of Delagar and surrounding district, the inconvenience of meeting, judging, sentencing, and expelling them, not to mention the crime against the state, the chopping down of 2 whole tree branches and the uprooting of 2 of 4 fern plants, which they had been so barbaric as to inflict upon the community. The crowd murmured its agreement. At that point it began to rain again, and moods did not improve. The sentence was a fine of 3 pennies, which was precisely what they had. In brackets, talk about a coincidence. The confiscation of all the weapons and their tinder. They were left the dog. Well, murmured the woman as they started to leave, that could have been worse. How? Asked the woman. At that moment the judge administrator of Delagar and surrounding district's second case of the day began. It was a woman whose cart had just killed one of the funny birds that went cuckoo, and which went by the name of chickens. The woman held it in her arms, and it was clearly visible that its neck was broken. As she passed by Saria, a tiny finger attached to a little hand, poking from a sleeve of an unmistakable yellow color, emerged from under the grey wooden shawl to settle on the soft feathers around the break and stop there. The chicken's neck resumed its normal curvature, and then slowly its eyes opened wide. After which all hell broke loose. The chicken running off, the word elf echoing through the crowd, everyone shouting and crashing into each other, and then the 3 of them standing in the middle of the halberdiers, who held the tips of their lances straight as at their throats. So, replied the woman, now it is worse. After the chicken's resurrection, the atmosphere had become truly incandescent. This time the attention of the judge administrator of Delagar and surrounding district was focused on Yoshkrung Squackle Yolnastring. You're an elf? The judge said severely. His tone was solemn and unchanging. His tongue had slowed on the word elf, articulating each letter very clearly. They fell like stones on the dumbstruck crowd. He's just a puppy, said the hunter. A little one, said the woman. One born lately, explained the little elf contentedly. Josh Krunk Squackle Jolnastring, he said, introducing himself with a little bow. It's forbidden to belch before the court, said the judge darkly. And I, judge administrator of Delagar and surrounding district, also forbid you to lie. As he pronounced these last words, the judge rose to his feet with an increasingly solemn air. The little elf was perplexed. Elves can't say anything except what they have in their heads. Well, yes, one can be polite every now and again, say that one understands when the words are incomprehensible, because treating stupid people as stupid shows a lack of good manners. But that's all. And I demand that you address me with the respect that I deserve, the judge continued. What was the polite form of address? The little elf struggled to remember. Fool! The little one shouted. No, perhaps that wasn't it. Foolency! No, excellent idiot! What was it again? Silence! The judge bellowed at the sniggering crowd. And you, call me Judge Administrator of Delagarn and surrounding district. Certainly, certainly, the little elf replied enthusiastically, a huge smile brightening his face. Judge Administrator of Delagar and surrounding district is the most beautiful name. We could give it to the dog, he added triumphantly. At this, the crowd really ran amok. An old man nearly exploded with laughter, and a halberdier dropped his halberd on his foot. This provoked general hilarity, and the elf couldn't help joining in. When human beings laughed, they looked really lovely. The only one who didn't laugh was the judge. Answer me, he said, turning back to the little elf. Do you know this man and this woman? Yes, the little elf said firmly. Apart from the most grave accusation of bringing an elf with them, and the yet even graver accusation of having employed deception to bring him inside our beloved city, have they done anything else? Yes. The male human eats corpses with rosemary, I think, and then he makes money by selling their skins. And that woman has sold her mother and her big brothers. No, the little ones. Yes, first the little ones, I don't remember. Total silence had now fallen again. Then an infernal clamor broke out. One really couldn't make anything out anymore. I told you I tended to get into trouble, the woman said to the hunter. Why didn't you go your own way? I must have sold my father in a former life, he replied. As he was being dragged away, the little elf saw the chicken again. It was perched on a window ledge, where it had a kind of nest with 2 eggs to it. Elf and chicken looked at one another for a moment, and greeted each other, because for that one moment they had had the same mind, and that united them forever. The little elf wondered if chicken or hen might be a good name for the dog. They weren't the same shape, but the color of the chicken's tail feathers was like that of the dog's tail and back paws. Then he reflected that the dog didn't lay eggs, and the chicken didn't lick your face if it thought you looked sad. So that name didn't fit either. So, guys and girls, that was chapter 5 of The Last Elf. Next time, we read chapter 6. But till now, I say, have a good morning, good afternoon, good eve, or good night, wherever you live or wherever you come from. See ya.